Okay, next up, I want to invite Rob Cuff and anyone else that you want to bring with you. Is that UHSAA Executive Director. We're going to receive our annual report on alignment. And there's another little piece right after this, but so I might, when you conclude, might still have you stay there.
Morning. I have with me Assistant Director Brendan Jackson as well. And good morning to everyone. It's good to see everyone again. Today we're here to provide the annual report that's in state statute, that we want to come and answer questions and provide some information. We send information to Lorraine and to Angie, which you've all received, on some documents that are with the board docs. The main thing I wanted to start out with, I know time is valuable, is with our Board of Trustees and the realignment of schools. We are in a realignment year. That gets everyone a little more excited than normal when it comes to high school sports, because everyone wants to be treated fairly, obviously. And in the documents that were sent, we put in a timetable that kind of shows the beginning to the end when we deal with realignment. It used to be at the Utah High School Activities Association that the realignment was done every 4 years. That changed about 8 years ago to every 2 years with the different levels and different modes of education and the charter schools, private schools, etc. We were seeing enrollments fluctuate a lot more often, and with the addition of building more schools and districts as well. And so the Board of Trustees at that time felt like it was going to be more important to the schools to treat them in a more fair way, to do the realignment process more often. So it's tough on staff, but we're able to do it. And when we finalize this alignment in December, we will choose a new realignment chair and committee in January for the next time. So we're just constantly in some type of area of the timetable that you see. If you're looking at the timetable, you'll notice there are 2 November 2018 dates. The first November date is actually our next Board of Trustees meeting, which is on November 15th. In that meeting, they will also determine the dates for the other November meeting and the 2 meetings in December, which includes a public hearing where schools and public can come and talk about their placement in a first draft before it's finalized. So we just wanted to get that out to you, make sure that you're aware of it. Laura is part of our realignment committee, our Board of Trustees, and so she has been very supportive and very involved in the process, and we just wanted to make sure that you understood what that process was. We are waiting right now for the October 1 counts, which were just done this week, and that's what the primary factor that we use in the alignment of schools. We've also have a factor of free and reduced lunch. If a school is more than 55% free and reduced lunch, they have the opportunity to appeal to go down a classification, and they become what we call a bubble school. Now, bubble schools are basically a term that's used by our board between one classification and another. There's 2 other ways that a school can become a bubble school. The other way is that we have 2 alignments. We have a football alignment, and then we have basically everything else. The reason why we have 2 alignments, and football being its only one, is that of our 154 member schools, 107 of them play football. So we have a lower number who play football. Once upon a time, before we had Class 6A, we had schools 3 times bigger playing in a classification, so a 3-to-1 ratio. With the addition of Class 6A to our football alignment, no school more than 2-to-1 ratio in each of those classifications. So a school would not be playing anybody more than twice as big. And again, that used to be that we had situations, especially with our rural schools, where down in the 2A and 3A classifications, they were playing schools 3 times as big, which was a concern from our schools, our member schools, and then also our Board of Trustees. The original way to become a bubble school is when the Board of Trustees looks at the enrollment numbers, and they'll look at the enrollment numbers without the schools attached, first of all, to create the first draft, just to take out any bias, politics, whatever you want to call it. They look at the numbers without the school there. They look for the natural breaks between the classifications. They come up with that original draft, and any school, so we have 6 classifications. So Class 6A has X number of schools, and then Class 5A, the highest enrollment school in Class 5A, any school 5% plus or minus of that highest school in that classification becomes a bubble school. And that carries down throughout all of the classifications. The reason why the board likes to do that is that they give the opportunity for the member schools to come in if they are one of those original bubble schools and provide a preference of whether they want to be up or whether they want to be down. And there's a lot of factors that go into whether a school wants to be up and wants to be down, such as geography, rivalries, keeping district schools together, etc. So that's, when you hear the term bubble school, that's what that all means. So we have original bubble schools based on the 5% plus or minus, and then we have bubble schools that are created either by the free and reduced lunch, which would allow a school to appeal to go down, or by any school appealing to go up. We've had some situations where a school may just not be a bubble school and say, we'd like to play up for whatever reason, those same reasons that I gave earlier. So, in essence of time, I don't want to talk about something you don't want to talk about, so I would be happy to answer any questions about realignment at this point, and then I can open it up, and Brennan can help me answer questions. We can talk about any of the documents that were sent.
Any questions on this, what's happening on the realignment side? Rob, I'm not seeing any, so.
I either did a good job or else somebody's going to email me later, right?
Yeah. Board member Wright?
You know, Mark, someone asked me recently, and this would be a real interesting study for like an econometric study or data analysis, is there a correlation between free and reduced school lunch and sports success? For example, like the Deseret News rankings, which I think are a really good kind of proxy for that. Lone Peak, which is right by, has been, extraordinary.
Mm-hmm.
I think their free and reduced school lunch is like 3%. I mean, and it seems there to be a powerful correlation, and I think you've further confirmed it to some extent by saying, if you're above 55% and over, you get to go down a classification. I mean, why is there that correlation, and does it matter, and what more is going to be done about it, if anything?
That's a great question. Over the years, the Board of Trustees has struggled to find an objective way to do the alignment because obviously subjectivity could enter in at any time. And so that's why it's basically the number one factor, and the only factor for a lot of years was strictly enrollment. What the board has found as they've looked at other states and as we have basically had the experience in our own state is where that free and reduced lunch comes into effect and the demographics is more the off-season. Those individuals don't get to have the year-round experience in the sport as much as maybe some of the other schools. And so that is a direct reflect of their performance on the field or their success. We also see a direct correlation where not as many kids come out for the team in that situation as well. Yeah, they're working, they're trying to support family, whatever the case might be.
Okay. Board Member Warner?
I just wanted to thank whoever made the decision to make women's lacrosse a sanctioned sport. Good job.
Well, it's both boys and girls, but shout out for the girls is great.
Already a sanctioned sport?
No,
Oh.
we wait. In fact, to the credit of the Lacrosse Association, we waited for the girls to catch up so that they could come on at the same time.
Okay, good.
It's been about a 20-year process when the lacrosse came to us first on the boys' side, and so they've been very patient.
Okay, we have a couple other board questions on that, and are you part of, hopefully everyone had a chance to review all this data, so I'm sure there's going to be some questions regarding it, your submittal. Board Member Hanson?
You know, I really enjoy going to the games, and I just missed you at the Cyprus game that night, so I'm sorry I missed you, but it's a great thing for the communities, and I think people who don't live in rural areas, like I haven't grown up in rural areas, but now that I have such a large district with rural areas, don't realize how much it means to these rural areas to have high school sports. So thank you for your great job in putting that together and helping these communities be together. That's all I wanted to say, is just thank you for your good work.
Well, thank you. I follow you on Twitter, so I see your pictures. They're awesome. And you're talking to two rural guys here. I grew up in Richfield, and Brennan grew up in Kanab, so we know about small-town sports and how important they are.
Okay. Board Member Lear?
My question is about the handbook amendments, which I have no problem with the current with the amendments you're proposing. I'm wondering what is a meaningful way for, as you know, I've had I paid some attention to the handbook provisions in the last couple of months, and what is a meaningful way for a board member who, I mean, it might be true of any other person, random person too, but what's a meaningful way to suggest or propose amendments to the handbook that wouldn't just be, you know, oh, here's another crazy person telling us how to do our jobs?
Right. Thank you. Thank you, Board Member Lear. Carol goes back a long time with the association when she was employed here, and we did correlate quite often with this group on what proposals needed to be looked at and what rules and bylaws and things. We have a Constitution and Bylaws Committee in place. There are a grassroots committee, and Laura is a member of that, where we look at and review our Constitution and bylaws on at least an annual basis. Sometimes it's twice a year. We usually do that in April after the legislative session, just to make sure that our bylaws and Constitution fits everything that's happened as a result of that. Anyone can send me an email as a proposal that I can get to that group. We can certainly send it to Laura, who can then send that to me. Dale Whitlock, our chair of our Board of Trustees, would have liked to have been here today. He can take that information as well, but we as staff can certainly make sure that gets to who it needs to get to. But a review of those of the Constitution bylaws is an annual thing for us, so we will be looking at that again in April.
Okay, thank you. I just would like my concerns, they're not huge, they're pretty simple, but I would like them to go somewhere or know that they've at least been considered, so.
When that Constitution and bylaws then makes a recommendation, then they make that to our executive committee, who then makes the recommendation to our Board of Trustees. So that's the process.
Thanks, Rob.
Rob, I'm not seeing any other questions or comments, and just for those that are here, the UHSAA annually will come here. This is all part of transparency and everything else that's happened there according to 53G-7-1104, and you're doing that today. We don't take action on it. This just all comes to us, but you're here to take feedback or to receive some feedback, and so thank you for being here.
Absolutely.
Is there
Thank
any
you.
other questions regarding any of the reports that's been submitted? Okay, I'm not seeing any. So I'm going to ask you to just hang up here, because there might be a question or two on this next topic, and I'm going to invite Deputy Superintendent Angie Stallings to come up and talk about the LEA Athletic Director certification. So you'll be sharing, you might need to slide over and squeeze another chair in, and Deputy Superintendent, will you please introduce who you have with you?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you, Chair Angie Stallings, your Deputy Superintendent of Policy, and I have with me Jody Kaufman, who is our Health and PE Specialist, is your official title. And just for your information, Superintendent Dixon is allowed to or participates in the High School Activities Association Executive Committee, and Jody serves as Superintendent Dixon's designee on the Executive Committee. And as you know, you have Board Member Belknap, who serves on the Board of Trustees for High School Activities Association. So Jody is joining us today because there was a request from a couple of board members to discuss whether or not the board should require athletic directors at school districts and charter schools to be certified NIAA, and I know Board Member Nielsen, AAA. Board Member Nielsen knows a lot more about that certification as well as the others at this table. So Jody has been involved in conversations with the High School Activities Association, with athletic directors and PE and other, mostly coaches, right? And she's going to just give a summary of the discussions that the coaches have been having about the athletic director's potentially required certification.
Hi, Jody Kaufman. I am the Health and PE Specialist, staff of the board. At the last UHSAA meeting, we did discuss athletic directors and whose role it could be to do any kind of certification. Through the conversation, there were a few options that could be the board can absolutely decide on. And part of that, so one, we could do a rule. So that would be an option. But UHSAA could also house that as they do coaches. They do register my coach. They could easily add something in. And then this group with the executive committee, that was kind of their preference, is that they would keep it there as they do coaches. And then with that, we could do NIAAA. That could be a choice, and do the certification process through them. But there could also be a range of other things that would qualify an athletic director. So such as they already have an admin license. And then maybe we add things like they go through the concussion training like a coach has to. They have CPR certification like a coach does. Bully hazing training as a coach does. Or maybe they are someone who's been in the coaching world for a long time. They are a very established coach, and they've become an athletic director through their coaching experience. And maybe that would put them in to be certified under whatever parameters we would meet. So those were some of the conversations. But the feeling of this committee really was that UHSAA could absolutely add it into their bylaws. Is that the right? As another step. So they have register my coach. They could also do the same with the athletic directors.
Questions, comments? Board Member Nielsen?
Okay, I just have a couple of questions because I was the one driving this. Just a couple of comments here. As we go through in schools and we say, and some of these schools are large. We have 4A, 5A, 6A schools with tremendous amounts of coaches. There's a lot of movement. And in some of those, in most schools, I dare say that their athletic directors are good, but in some schools, those athletic directors are leaned on very, very, very heavily. And it's been my experience where I would rather promote that I would like to certify these individuals, and I'm not talking about giving them, making them go back to school or any of that kind of stuff, but give them the training that they need to be more successful in the atmospheres that they're in. I think that's absolutely crucial. A lot of these athletic directors, they're dealing with, sports with boys, sports with girls. They're dealing with Title IX. They're involved very much so in the hiring and managing of coaches. And right now we have Register My Coach, and you got to go through all these hoops to be in that. But the person or the individuals who the coaches are reporting to and that they're working with, the athletic director, have no such certifications. They're just there. And so I feel like this would help improve them professionally. I espouse saying if you already have an administrative license, you should be good to go. I don't feel like these people need any more additional training because they've been in the schools. They largely understand how this goes. And I would welcome the High School Activities Association with their views on which program, whether it's the NIAAA or another program that they feel like they can house to make things run smoothly or make things happen. And so, Rob, can you elaborate on that? What would be best for you guys?
Sure, and then Brennan can chime in here as well. The reason why we brought it and put it on the agenda for the executive committee just a week ago was that we were getting some pushback from superintendents and principals just wanting to know the criteria, wanting to know exactly what's taken place, and then the questions that Board Member Nelson just brought up as far as other certification and if this is going to be the only certification. So after that discussion, because we wanted to get more input from our stakeholders, superintendents and principals, along with the athletic directors, and in that executive committee meeting, which was made up mostly of principals, there were also a handful of athletic directors there as well. And so they got to speak and got to discuss this. But at the end of the meeting, we felt like that certification is good. We want to have some type of certification. I am actually a CAA, the certification program that they want to input, which is an exceptional certification, which also brings $2 million of liability insurance to the athletic director. And I know that the athletic directors have been told through their sports law and NIAAA meetings that any athletic director who has had something come to them with litigation or liability or whatever, if they were a CAA, then they've never lost a case. And so that liability insurance is certainly important. I don't know all the ins and outs. Brennan may know what a secondary principal or assistant principal is covered by way of that additional coverage that may be helpful in the sports world today, obviously. But I'm all for certification. I think our board, Jody would say the same thing. I think they were all for some type of certification, but they wanted to take it to the Constitution bylaws, discuss it, come up with some type of criteria, and put it in place as a bylaw for next school year. Brennan, do you want to add anything?
Well, I think one of the issues too is that in many of our schools, the assistant principals act as the athletic directors, and they have their administrative certification and have been through a lot of different school law studies and cases and things like that. So that was kind of an issue that was brought up by a number of schools in that principals that sit on the executive committee. Just what will the certification look like? How do we go about it? And to make it meaningful and yet not bog everybody down with who really needs the certification. So that was kind of the topic of our discussion.
I apologize for this distraction, but we can't get the mics to work up here. And board members, just in the interest of time, these are all great questions. But my understanding is if we're wanting to do something on this, we're going to have to create a rule. And as we create that rule in committee and that, there'll be a lot of vetting. And I don't think we have time today to really vet all of that. So if there's a motion to.
Can I make a recommendation, Chair?
Sure. I don't know how to. Go ahead.
It's me. I'm the only one with the board member that has a mic, so that's it.
there's
Chad.
at least two
Yeah,
in
but those
here,
aren't
but
board member
everybody
mics.
It's kind of flashing and I can't.
I'm sorry. I just maybe by nod instead of by a motion to have them continue and bring back some recommendations before we create a rule. Is anyone anti that? You know?
Okay, let me
Carol, you're gonna have to
recognize
come
Board
over here.
Member Lear.
Sorry to do this, I don't want to make this more complicated, but, and I don't not support the UHSAA bringing us back some ideas, but I would like to keep it. I don't want a board rule about this. I would like the authority over this to stay with UHSAA. So that's just one board member speaking, but I don't want to take that authority at all, any more than we already have.
Okay, so, yeah, but we're having all this discussion as though we're going to be moving forward, and so we need to probably move off this bubble of leave it in their court or try to bring it in ours or start it in ours to see where it goes. And so that's probably what's more appropriate for the use of the time. And I'm not, if somebody has, I mean, right now it's in their court right now. So if somebody is wanting to make a motion for this board, not for them, but for us, will you raise your hand so I can recognize you? Okay, I'm not seeing, so the ball is in your court, Rob. So, does anyone else have any other questions regarding this subject? Yes, Board Member Bolter, I saw your. So
She's going to ask.
yeah, I'm just trying to keep. We can't get your mic to light up, so if we're going to keep. Oh,
I'm chosen.
but I've got these others.
No, my question was, I know that coaches have to already get certification in order to coach for high school. So would that be in addition to, or would it be something different? Or are we doing something different for the athletic administrators, not the coaches? I just wanted some.
Yeah, if the athletic director is a coach in the school, it would be in addition to. So it's something similar to licensing for a secondary principal or a principal, but it would be a licensing for an athletic director. But we could take that, as I've heard, to our Constitution bylaws, come up with a plan, and then show you what we did, and if you want to go further, we can.
It's from Scott. Mine works. That means we're done. Amen.
Thank you.
I apologize for this technical difficulty, but it's important that we try to stay on the mics if we can. So, thank you, Rob. That concludes that portion of it.